The gleaming medical bay of Space Station Helios hummed with an unsettling quiet, broken only by the soft beeping of diagnostic equipment and the whispered conversations of worried medical staff. Dr. Marcus Zhang stood before the observation window, his weathered face reflected against the backdrop of stars, watching as another Centauri patient was brought in. Their typically luminescent skin had dulled to an ashen gray, a telltale sign of the mysterious illness that had been spreading through the alien population for the past week. "Dr. Zhang, the latest test results are ready," announced Dr. Kix, the station's chief medical officer. The Arcturians' crystalline form shifted colors as they moved, a sign of deep concern in their species. Still no match in any known pathogen database. Marcus rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of 3 sleepless nights. He was the only human doctor aboard Helios, brought on as part of an interspecies medical exchange program. Most of the time, his primitive human medical knowledge was merely tolerated by his advanced alien colleagues. But now, with 27 Centauri ill and no answers in sight, even the most sophisticated alien medical technology seemed inadequate. "Show me," Marcus said, following Dr. Kix to the holographic display. The readings floated in the air, a complex dance of numbers and patterns that represented the deteriorating health of their patients. The Centauri were a species that literally glowed with health, their bioluminescent skin serving as both a communication method and a vital sign. Now, one by one, they were going dark. "Their cellular energy production is dropping," Dr. Kix observed, their crystalline form pulsing with frustrated red patterns. "But we can't identify why. Their immune responses are chaotic, almost as if they're fighting the wrong enemy." Marcus finished, squinting at the data. Something about the pattern tickled at his memory, reminiscent of something he'd seen back on Earth. A commotion at the entrance drew their attention. A young Centauri was being rushed in, their skin barely glowing at all. Unlike the adults who had been falling ill gradually, children seemed to decline much faster. Marcus recognized this one. Luma, the daughter of one of the station's engineers. "Temperature rising," reported Nurse Vex, a Silurian whose tentacles moved with precise efficiency over the medical equipment. "Cellular luminescence down to 12%. Marcus moved closer, his mind racing. The symptoms, the fever, the energy depletion, the systemic shutdown, they reminded him of something he'd seen during his residency in Singapore. There had been an outbreak of a rare fungal infection that had presented similarly in human patients. "Dr. Kix," Marcus said slowly, "have you checked for mycological agents? Fungal pathogens?" Dr. Kix's form rippled with dismissive blue waves. "The Centauri have no known vulnerability to fungal infections. Their bioluminescent systems produce natural antifungal compounds." "Exactly," Marcus said, excitement building. "What if those compounds are the problem? What if something is triggering their antifungal response systems to overreact, causing them to burn through their energy reserves?" Dr. Kix paused, their crystalline surface showing swirls of contemplative green. "An interesting theory, but what would cause such a response?" Marcus was already moving to the analysis station. "During the Singapore outbreak, we found that certain probiotic compounds could help regulate the immune response. The treatment was surprisingly simple." "Dr. Zhang," Dr. Kix interrupted, their tone sharp. "This is not a human hospital. We cannot experiment with primitive Earth treatments on Centauri children." Marcus turned to face his colleague, his voice firm but respectful. "With all due respect, Dr. Kix, our advanced treatments aren't working. Sometimes the simplest solution is the right one. Look at these patterns in their energy consumption. It's almost identical to what I saw in human patients." Before Dr. Kix could respond, Lumi's vital signs began to crash. Her skin had gone almost completely dark, and the medical alerts were screaming for attention. Her parents, who had been watching anxiously from the doorway, rushed forward, their own luminescence flickering with fear. "We're losing her," Nurse Vex announced, tentacles flying over the emergency protocols. Marcus made a decision. From his personal medical kit, he pulled out a small vial, a probiotic compound he brought from Earth for his own use. Dr. Kix, we can argue about primitive medicine later. Right now, we have a child who's running out of time. Let me try. Dr. Kix's surface swirled with conflicting colors, professional skepticism warring with desperate hope. Finally, they gave a curt nod. Proceed. But if anything goes wrong, it's on my head, Marcus agreed, already preparing the injection. He'd need to adjust the dosage for Zentari physiology, but the basic principle should hold true. As he worked, he explained his reasoning to Lumi's parents through the translator. Their glow pulsed with anxiety, but they too gave their consent. With steady hands, Marcus administered the treatment. The room fell silent except for the steady beep of monitoring equipment. For several tense minutes, nothing seemed to change. Then, almost imperceptibly at first, a faint glow began to return to Lumi's skin. Energy levels stabilizing. Nurse Vex reported, surprise evident in their modulated tones. Cellular luminescence increasing. Over the next hour, they watched as Lumi's condition gradually improved. Her skin began to emit a stronger glow, and her vital signs steadily returned to normal ranges. Dr. Kix's crystalline form had shifted to a deep purple of amazement. I don't understand, they admitted. How did you know? Marcus smiled tiredly. Sometimes the most advanced civilizations can overlook the simple things. On Earth, we learned long ago that health often isn't about fighting harder. It's about finding balance. The probiotics don't kill anything. They just help the body's systems remember their natural rhythm. As word of Lumi's improvement spread through the medical bay, Marcus could see the other alien doctors looking at him with new interest. He knew this was just the beginning. They would need to understand exactly how the treatment worked, adapt it for adult Centauri, and prevent future outbreaks. But for now, watching the relieved glow of Lumi's parents as they embraced their recovering daughter, he felt a profound sense of validation. Sometimes, it took an outsider's perspective to see what others had overlooked. Human medicine might be considered primitive by galactic standards, but today it had proved that wisdom could come from unexpected places. As Marcus began preparing doses for the other patients, he couldn't help but smile at the irony. Sometimes the best cure for an advanced alien illness was a simple human remedy. News of Lumi's recovery spread through Space Station Helios like a quantum wave, bringing both hope and controversy in its wake. Dr. Marcus Jung found himself at the center of a storm as he stood before the station's medical advisory board, consisting of representatives from 7 different species. The chamber's architecture reflected the diversity of its occupants, variable gravity zones, atmosphere-controlled pods, and temperature-regulated sectors all arranged in a circular pattern. You administered an untested Earth-based treatment to a Zentari child without proper protocols, stated Board Director Nix, a meridian whose plasma-based form swirled with patterns of disapproval. This is a serious breach of medical procedure. Marcus stood his ground, hands clasped behind his back. With respect, Director, we had exhausted all standard protocols. The patient was critical, and the treatment worked. Lumi's recovery speaks for itself. One success does not validate a treatment, countered Dr. Kix, though their crystalline form showed traces of supportive blue amidst the official red of criticism. However, I must acknowledge that we have seen marked improvement in her condition. The debate was interrupted by an urgent message. 3 more Zentari children had been admitted to the medical bay, their luminescence dangerously dim. The situation was escalating faster than anyone had anticipated. We don't have time for bureaucratic debates, Marcus argued, pulling up holographic displays of the latest patient data. Look at these readings. The pattern is identical to Lumi's case. We now have proof that the probiotic treatment works, and we have children who need help. A quantum mind AI representative, appearing as a complex matrix of light, interjected. Our simulations indicate a 68.3% probability of success based on the initial case. However, we cannot calculate the long-term effects without more data. Marcus fought back his frustration. While the board deliberated, real patients were suffering. He thought of the vials of probiotic compound in his medical kit, enough for maybe 5 more treatments. He'd have to synthesize more, but that would require official approval. Perhaps, came a new voice, we should hear from someone else. All eyes turned to the chamber entrance where Lumi's parents stood, their healthy glow a testament to their daughter's recovery. They had requested to address the board, a rare occurrence in station proceedings. Lumi's mother spoke first, her bioluminescent patterns translated into universal standard by the chamber systems. 3 days ago, our daughter was dying. Your advanced treatments couldn't help her. Dr. Zhang's primitive medicine saved her life. Now other parents are watching their children fade, while you debate procedures. The chamber fell silent. Even Director Nix's plasma form stilled momentarily. Marcus seized the opportunity. I propose a compromise, he said. Let me treat the critical cases now, under full monitoring conditions. Your systems can record everything, analyze every reaction. We'll build the data you need while saving lives. The board members communicated among themselves in a flurry of light patterns, chemical signals, and quantum states. Finally, Director Nix's form coalesced into a decision pattern. Proposal accepted, with conditions. Dr. Kix will oversee all treatments. Every step will be documented and analyzed. At the first sign of adverse effects, the program ends immediately. Marcus nodded, already mentally preparing for the work ahead. But as he turned to leave, another alert flashed across the chamber's displays. The illness had appeared in a non-Centauri patient. A Silurian crew member was showing similar symptoms of energy depletion. Impossible. Dr. Kix's crystalline form pulsed with shock. The physiologies are completely different. Marcus felt his blood run cold. If the illness could jump between species, they were dealing with something far more dangerous than they'd initially thought. He quickly pulled up the new patient's data, comparing it to the Centauri cases. A pattern similar but not identical, he observed. Like the same song played in a different key. We'll need to modify the treatment accordingly. This changes everything, Director Nix announced. Dr. Zhang, you have 12 hours to demonstrate positive results with both species. If you succeed, you'll have full resources to synthesize more of your compound. If you fail, the implications hung in the air like a dark nebula. Marcus squared his shoulders, feeling the weight of lives in his hands. I understand. Dr. Kix, shall we begin? As they hurried to the medical bay, Marcus's mind raced. He'd need to adjust the probiotic formulation for Silurian physiology, accounting for their silicon-based biology. The treatment that saved Lumi might need significant modifications to work on other species. I hope your Earth medicine is as adaptable as you claim, Dr. Kix commented as they entered the medical bay. Marcus managed a grim smile. That's the beauty of it, Dr. Kix. Earth's greatest gift to medicine isn't our technology. It's our ability to learn and adapt. We've had to, dealing with millions of different species on our own world. The medical bay doors slid shut behind them, and the real work began. As Marcus prepared the first modified treatment, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were only seeing the beginning of this crisis. Whatever this illness was, it was breaking all the rules they thought they knew about interspecies diseases. The next 12 hours would either prove the value of human medical knowledge to the galaxy or demonstrate its limitations. The medical bay of Space Station Helios had transformed into a crucible of tension and discovery. Dr. Marcus Zhang hadn't slept in 36 hours, sustained only by synthetic caffeine and determination. Around him, the ward was filled to capacity with patients from 3 different species now: Centauri, Silurian, and most recently, 2 Meridians whose plasma forms flickered dangerously dim. The modified treatment is showing positive results in the Silurian patients, Dr. Kix reported, their crystalline form emanating patterns of cautious optimism. But the Meridian cases are proving more challenging. Their energy patterns aren't stabilizing like the others. Marcus stared at the holographic displays, his tired eyes searching for patterns in the chaos of data. The probiotic treatment had worked on the Centauri because it helped regulate their bioluminescent systems. They'd modified it for the silicon-based Silurians by adjusting the mineral composition. But the Meridians, with their plasma-based physiology, were another challenge entirely. "We're missing something," Marcus muttered, pacing the length of the observation window. "The illness affects each species differently, but the core mechanism must be the same. It's like it's speaking different dialects of the same language." Dr. Kicks's form shifted to a questioning purple. "An interesting metaphor, but how does it help us save our Meridian patients?" Before Marcus could respond, a commotion erupted at the medical bay entrance. A team of emergency responders rushed in with an unconscious Arcturian engineer, their crystalline form clouded and dull, just like Dr. Kicks's species. The illness had spread to a fourth species. "No," Dr. Kicks whispered, their own crystalline surface rippling with distress. "Not my people, too." Marcus watched as his colleague's professional detachment cracked, revealing the fear beneath. It was a starkly human moment from a being who had previously seemed above such emotions. He placed a hand near Dr. Kicks's surface, careful not to touch. A gesture of support that transcended species. "We'll figure this out," Marcus promised. "But I need your help. You understand crystalline biology better than anyone here." Dr. Kicks's form stabilized slightly. "What are you thinking?" Each species processes energy differently, but they're all losing it to this illness. The probiotics work by helping restore natural balance, but we need to understand how that balance works for each species. Marcus pulled up the patient data side by side. "Look at these patterns. In the Centauri, it affects their bioluminescence. In Silurians, their silicon matrices. In Meridians, their plasma containment. And in Arcturians, our crystalline resonance." Dr. Kicks finished, their form brightening with realization. "The illness isn't attacking our bodies directly. It's disrupting our energy processing systems." Marcus nodded excitedly. "Exactly. And what if we're thinking too narrowly about the treatment? Instead of modifying the probiotics for each species, what if we created a comprehensive energy stabilization protocol?" They worked feverishly, combining their knowledge of different biological systems. Dr. Kicks's understanding of crystalline and plasma physics proved invaluable as they developed a new approach. Instead of fighting the illness directly, they designed a treatment that would help each species maintain its unique energy balance while fighting off the infection. Hours blurred together as they refined their protocol. The medical bay became a laboratory of innovation, with doctors and nurses from all species contributing their insights. Even the station's quantum-mind AI joined in, running millions of simulations to help perfect the treatment ratios. But just as they were making progress, alarms blared throughout the station. The environmental systems were failing, and the cause was horrifyingly clear. The bacterial colonies that helped maintain the station's atmosphere were showing signs of the same energy disruption. "It's not just affecting sentient life," Marcus realized with growing dread. "It's affecting all complex biological systems. If those colonies die, the station becomes uninhabitable." Dr. Kicks finished grimly. "How long?" "At current deterioration rates, less than 48 hours, the station's AI reported." The medical bay fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just fighting to save individual patients anymore. They were racing to save everyone aboard Helios. Marcus felt the weight of thousands of lives pressing down on him, threatening to crush his resolve. Time seemed to flow like cold plasma in the environmental control center of Space Station Helios. Dr. Marcus Zhang and Dr. Kicks worked side by side, surrounded by holographic displays showing the deteriorating condition of the station's vital bacterial colonies. The room pulsed with the glow of emergency lighting, and the crystalline forms of Arcturian engineers racing to modify the atmospheric processors. "The bacterial colonies are failing faster than predicted," announced the station's AI, its quantum matrix flickering with concern. 32 hours until critical failure." Marcus studied the latest analysis of their modified treatment. They'd successfully adapted the probiotic formula for large-scale deployment, but something still bothered him about the underlying pattern of the illness. "Dr. Kix, look at this energy signature," he said, highlighting a particular data stream. "There's something familiar about it. It reminds me of something I studied during my residency, symbiotic relationships in Earth's deep-sea thermal vents." Dr. Kix's crystalline form shifted to an analytical configuration. "Explain." "In those environments, bacteria form complex relationships with other organisms. They don't just exist alongside each other. They evolve to become interdependent." Marcus expanded the holographic display. "What if this isn't just an illness? What if it's a disrupted symbiotic relationship?" A soft chime interrupted them as Director Nix materialized in the control center, their plasma form contained within a portable field generator. "Dr. Zhang, the Medical Advisory Board requires an update on your progress." "Director, I think we've been looking at this all wrong," Marcus said, quickly sharing his new theory. "Each affected species processes energy differently, but they all have one thing in common. They host beneficial microscopic life forms that help regulate their energy systems. Even the station's bacterial colonies are part of a larger symbiotic network." Dr. Kix's form pulsed with sudden understanding. "The Zentaries' bioluminescent helpers, the Silurians' silicon processing bacteria, our crystalline resonance enhancers." "Exactly," Marcus continued. "Something is disrupting these relationships. The probiotics aren't just treating symptoms. They're helping restore these natural partnerships." Director Nix's plasma form swirled thoughtfully. "An interesting theory. But how does this help us save the station?" Marcus tapped several commands into the system, bringing up new data streams. "We need to stop thinking of the treatment as medicine and start thinking of it as a mediator. Instead of forcing the systems to work, we need to help them remember how to work together." He turned to the station's eye. "Can you analyze the energy patterns of healthy symbiotic relationships in each affected species? Look for common frequencies, shared rhythms, anything that might show how these partnerships naturally function." The AI's quantum matrix expanded as it processed the request. After several tense moments, new patterns emerged in the holographic displays. They showed complex but surprisingly similar resonance patterns across all affected species. "Remarkable," Dr. Kix breathed, their crystalline surface shimmering with excitement. "The basic harmony is the same, just expressed through different biological mediums." Marcus smiled. "Just like different instruments playing the same song. Now we know what we're trying to restore." He turned to Director Nix. "We need to modify the environmental systems to broadcast these resonance patterns throughout the station while we disperse the treatment. It won't just treat the symptoms. It will remind every affected system how to work together properly." The director's plasma form fluctuated as they considered the proposal. The energy requirements would be substantial. "We can reroute power from non-essential systems," Dr. Kix suggested. "My engineering team can make the necessary modifications within 4 hours." "You have 3, Director Nix replied, their form hardening with authority. "Because that's all the time we have before the board begins emergency evacuation procedures." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Marcus worked with Dr. Kix and the engineering team to modify the atmospheric processors while the AI refined the resonance patterns. The medical bay continued to fill with new cases, but now there was hope in the tired eyes and dimmed forms of the medical staff. Finally, everything was ready. The modified probiotics had been loaded into the environmental systems, and the resonance generators were aligned. Marcus stood at the main control panel, his hand hovering over the activation sequence. "One question, Dr. Zhang," Director Nix said softly. "How did you know to look for symbiotic relationships? None of our advanced diagnostic systems identified this pattern." Marcus thought about Earth, about its countless species all living in complex interconnection. On Earth, we learned long ago that nothing truly lives in isolation. Every living thing is part of a greater whole. Sometimes, the most advanced civilizations can forget the simple truths that less developed worlds had to learn to survive. He pressed the activation sequence. Throughout the station, hidden speakers began broadcasting the carefully calculated resonance patterns. A symphony of life played in frequencies that spanned from subsonic to quantum harmonics. The environmental systems hummed as they dispersed the modified treatment through every sector. For several long minutes, nothing seemed to change. Then, slowly, the readings began to shift. In the medical bay, the Centauri patients began to glow brighter. Silurian vital signs stabilized. Meridian plasma patterns strengthened. And in the station's bacterial colonies, the energy disruption began to reverse. Dr. Kicks's crystalline form blazed with joy. It's working. The symbiotic relationships are reestablishing themselves. Marcus watched the displays, relief flooding through his exhausted body. They had done it. By combining Earth's ancient understanding of life's interconnectedness with the advanced technology of galactic civilization, they had found a way to heal not just individual patients, but entire ecosystems. As the station's systems continued to stabilize, Marcus couldn't help but smile at the irony. Sometimes the most important medical discoveries didn't come from advancing technology, but from remembering fundamental truths. That all life is connected, that balance is as important as power, and that healing often means helping nature remember its own wisdom. 2 weeks after the crisis, Space Station Helios buzzed with an energy that had nothing to do with its various power systems. The Grand Conference Chamber, usually reserved for diplomatic functions, was filled to capacity with beings from across the galaxy. Dr. Marcus Jong stood at the center of it all, still somewhat uncomfortable with the attention, but understanding the importance of the moment. The chamber had been specially modified to accommodate representatives from dozens of species, environment-controlled pods for plasma-based life forms, gravity adjusters for crystalline entities, and atmospheric barriers for silicon-based beings. Yet despite their profound differences, they were united by a common purpose: to understand how a primitive Earth solution had led to a breakthrough in interstellar medicine. Director Nix's plasma form commanded attention as they addressed the gathered assembly. What we witnessed on Helios was more than just a medical crisis averted. It was a paradigm shift in how we understand the relationship between different forms of life. Dr. Kicks, standing beside Marcus, had their crystalline form polished to a ceremonial shine. Dr. Zhang's insight into symbiotic relationships didn't just save our station. It has opened new avenues of research across all our medical sciences. Sometimes the most profound discoveries come from looking backward to move forward. Marcus took his turn at the speaker's platform, facing the assembled beings with a mixture of humility and pride. The solution we found wasn't just human, and it wasn't just alien. It was a bridge between worlds. Earth's history forced us to understand the delicate balance of life because we couldn't rely on advanced technology. We had to learn to work with nature, not against it. He gestured to the holographic displays, showing the new medical protocols being implemented across the galaxy. The probiotic treatment was just the beginning. By understanding how different species maintain their energy balance through symbiotic relationships, we've developed new approaches to treating a wide range of conditions. But more importantly, we've learned that medicine isn't just about curing illness. It's about maintaining harmony. In the medical bay, now returning to its normal operation, the evidence of their success was clear. Centauri patients glowed with healthy luminescence, their symbiotic bacteria once again in perfect balance. Silurian workers moved with renewed vigor, their silicon matrices humming in harmony with their microscopic helpers. Even the Arcturians' crystalline forms seemed to shimmer with enhanced clarity. A young Centauri child, Lumi, the first patient to receive the treatment, approached Marcus with a gift. It was a small bioluminescent crystal, created by combining Centauri light-producing bacteria with Arcturian crystal-growing techniques. It's a symbol, she explained through the translator, of different kinds of life working together. The gesture touched Marcus deeply. He carefully accepted the crystal, watching as it pulsed with a gentle, living light. "Thank you," he said. "This is what it's all about. Learning from each other, growing together." Director Nix floated forward. The Medical Advisory Board has unanimously voted to establish a new division of interspecies medicine, focusing on the study of natural symbiotic relationships across all known life forms. Dr. Zhang, we would be honored if you would co-chair this initiative with Dr. Kix. Marcus looked at his crystalline colleague, seeing the supportive patterns flowing across their surface. Their working relationship had evolved into a deep friendship, proving that understanding could bridge even the widest gaps between species. "I would be honored," Marcus replied, "but on one condition, that we establish exchange programs to bring more human doctors to stations like Helios and send alien medical practitioners to Earth. We all have so much to learn from each other." The proposal was met with enthusiastic agreement. Already, plans were being made to share medical knowledge across species barriers, combining Earth's traditional wisdom with the advanced techniques of galactic civilization. As the ceremony concluded, Marcus found a quiet moment to stand at his favorite observation window. The stars stretched out before him, each one potentially holding new forms of life, new symbiotic relationships to understand, new bridges to build between different ways of healing. Dr. Kix joined him, their crystalline form reflecting the starlight. "You know, Marcus, when you first arrived on Helios, many of us thought human medicine was hopelessly primitive." Marcus smiled. "And now? Now we understand that progress isn't always about moving forward. Sometimes it's about remembering what simpler times taught us. Your Earth medicine reminded us that all life, no matter how different it appears, speaks the same fundamental language." Together, they watched as a transport ship docked with Helios, carrying the first group of human doctors coming to study alien medicine, and alien physicians eager to learn Earth's approaches to healing. The station that had nearly been destroyed by a microscopic breakdown in symbiotic relationships had become a symbol of cooperation between species. Marcus touched the bioluminescent crystal Lumi had given him, watching its gentle pulse sync with the rhythm of his heartbeat. In that simple interaction between human, crystal, and bacteria, he saw the future of medicine, not as a competition between primitive and advanced techniques, but as a harmony of different voices singing the same song of life.